There was a time in a faraway land. It was a period of winter, and everywhere was filled with flakes of snow falling to the ground, rooftops, road paths, and making everywhere cold. The queen sat by herself near the window of her room, her mind deep in thoughts because she did not have a beautiful daughter to call her own. I wish I had a beautiful girl I can carry around all day. While she bent over to gaze at the wintry scene out the window, she pricked her finger at the frame of the window made of fine black ebony. When she pricked her finger, she exclaimed, then a drop of blood fell on the snow, and it began to spread out on the white snow. Then she said, I wish that my little daughter may be as white as that snow, as red as that blood, and as black as this ebony window frame. After saying those words, she began to weep uncontrollably, but when she heard footsteps approaching her room, she quickly stopped sobbing, cleaned her face, and sat down quietly so as not to draw attention. It was a beautiful day for the queen and all that lived in the palace. She had conceived and given birth to a daughter. Indeed, her skin was white as snow, her cheeks were rosy as blood, and her hair was black as ebony. The queen was pleased to call her Snow White. "O king, will you be pleased if we call our princess Snow White?" the queen asked.
"Yes, lovely queen, it's a beautiful name,"
the king replied. The queen was very fond of Snow White. She was always found taking care of her, feeding her, cleaning her, and telling her bedtime stories. The king too was very happy to have a daughter. While Snow White was still growing, her mother fell seriously ill. She called the king and said to him, "I think I'm going to die, but please take good care of our daughter. She's the only thing that can make my rest peaceful." Then she eventually gave up the ghost. Snow White was very sad. She cried a lot, wishing there was something she could do to bring her mother back. The king and many other servants were also sad because of the queen's death, for she was a kind woman. After the demise of the queen, the king was in great pain because he loved her dearly. She was the best woman he had ever come in contact with. One day, he called Snow White and asked,
"My daughter, I am growing older and lonelier. Do you think I should remarry a beautiful woman that can take care of both of us?"
Will the king remarry? After the death of the queen, the king decided it was time to remarry. After a brief period of searching, he finally found a very beautiful queen. Indeed, she was fair among ladies and so delightful to behold. However, she was so vain that she liked to think she was the most beautiful person in the kingdom. She dreaded the fact that there could be a woman who was more beautiful than her, and she had a magic mirror which she spoke with regularly to find if there was any other person as beautiful as she was. "Tell me the truth, O mirror. Of all the ladies in the land, who is fairest? Tell me, who?" And the glass had always answered,
"You, queen, are the fairest in all the land."
As Snow White grew up, she became more and more stunningly beautiful. News about Snow White's beauty began to spread in all the kingdom, and soon enough, everyone in the kingdom had acknowledged that, indeed, Snow White was a beauty to behold. The news grew so much that one day the queen heard about it, and she became jealous. She started to ask people, "Who is more beautiful between Snow White and I?" the queen asked. "You, indeed, are the most beautiful in the kingdom," the people replied. For fear of the evil she could do, people would often assent to her being the fairest in all the kingdom, and they'll add a forced smile so they can convince her that they mean what they're saying. But the queen was not satisfied, because she knew the people were scared of her, and they'll only speak in her favor not to get hurt. The moment she heard about Snow White's beauty as being close to hers, she grew angry and decided to check her magic mirror. "Mirror, am I still the fairest lady in all the kingdom?" the queen asked.
"You, queen, are fair and beautiful to behold, and there is no other lady in all the kingdom who is as fair as you."
As soon as she heard that, she was at peace. She threw a party and invited many people to celebrate. When Snow White clocked 16, she was extremely beautiful. Her skin was as bright as the sun, and her beauty was too much for words. It was now evident to everyone in the kingdom, and no one denied it anymore, but all acknowledged that, indeed, Snow White was the most beautiful among all ladies. One day, one of the servants said it without knowing the queen was around the corner. Indeed, Snow White has grown more beautiful than the queen, and all the kingdom speaks of it. So she went to her mirror, quite confidently, and asked, "Who is the fairest lady in the kingdom, O mirror?"
"You are indeed fair, but Snow White has grown way fairer than you."
The mirror responded. When the queen heard this, she was enraged and bitterly jealous of Snow White. She had always nursed the idea that there would never be a lady as beautiful as her in the entire kingdom. She began to think of how to get rid of Snow White. Suddenly, she had an idea. She thought, should I order my servant take Snow White to the woods and kill her there? Will she call her servant to kill Snow White? After thinking about what to do to get rid of Snow White, she decided the best thing will be to ask her servant to do it. So, she called one of her most faithful servants and instructed him to take Snow White to the woods to kill her. The servant consented to her instruction, and he took Snow White to the woods to kill her.
Snow White, remember you have never hunted for animals?
The servant asked. No, I haven't.
Let me now take my lady to the woods so she can learn how to hunt.
It will be great. Snow White responded with great excitement. Will the servant do the queen's instruction? When the servant brought Snow White to the woods to kill her as the queen had instructed, he became compassionate and he thought of his own children too. He knew he wouldn't like his children to be killed, so he didn't want to kill Snow White either.
Dear princess, find a good place to hide and never come back because the queen wants you dead.
He asked Snow White to run away and never come back to the palace because the queen will kill her if she discovered she was still alive. Then he narrated how the queen had told him to bring her to the woods to kill her. When Snow White asked him what he would tell the queen, he said he would tell her he had killed her already. Snow White thanked him and ran into the forest. Perhaps she would find somewhere safe to hide. While Snow White ran into the forest, she became very hungry and tired, and she wanted so badly to eat and to sleep. She began to wish she'd find a place where she could get something to eat and also get some good night's sleep. She said to herself, "Oh, I wish I could find a bed as comfortable as mine in the palace, food as delicious as the one in my palace, and company as I enjoy with my father in the palace." She found a cottage, but she was contemplating whether she should go in or not. Will Snow White go into the cottage? Snow White enters into the cottage and finds that there were 7 meal settings and 7 beds for the 7 dwarfs. She thought of a way to eat the food without the dwarves noticing that someone had eaten out of the food. She thought of taking small portions of each food that was set. Will Snow White eat some of the food on the table? Without much thinking, Snow White decided she would take a little bite from each food, and a little sip from each cup. She tried to take only a little from each of the food setting, because the table was set for 7 people. If I could take a little of each food portion in 7 places, I would be filled to an extent, Snow White thought. Snow White was really sleepy. She had not had a good sleep for nearly 2 nights. In the previous night, she had slept in the woods and she didn't sleep soundly because she was scared of snakes, wild animals, and insects. She saw 7 beds for the 7 dwarves, and she began to examine all of them until she was satisfied with the 7th one she tested. Then she slept on it soundly. When the dwarves arrived in the evening, they observed that their home had been tampered with. The first said,
"Who has been sitting on my stool?"
The second,
"Who has been eating off my plate?"
the third,
"Who has been picking my bread?"
the fourth,
"Who has been meddling with my spoon?"
the fifth,
"Who has been handling my fork?"
the sixth,
"Who has been cutting with my knife?"
the seventh.
"Who has been drinking my tea?"
While they were still looking confused, one of them noticed that their beds were also tampered with, and suddenly, they saw Snow White lying on the last bed. When they moved closer, they were entranced by her beauty, and they decided not to wake her from sleep. When it was morning, Snow White woke up to find the 7 dwarves gazing at her. Then one of them broke the ice and asked Snow White who she was and why she was in the woods alone. Snow White explained, "My mother died, and my father, the king, married another wife who wants to kill me because I am more beautiful than her." They seemed to be more interested in her story, so she continued to narrate how her stepmother wanted her dead, but she was lucky to still be alive. After listening patiently, the dwarves agreed to take care of her, but Snow White said she'd stay with them only if they allowed her to cook and do the house chores. As time passed while the dwarves and Snow White were living together, they became very fond of her because she was very beautiful, hardworking, and respectful. They began to nurture her like their own child. They ensured she ate the best food, drank only clean water, and wore the best of clothes. Soon, they became scared that the queen will come looking for Snow White. So, they told Snow White,
"Dear princess, please always stay indoors and never open the door to strangers, because the queen may seek to kill you."
Snow White obeyed the dwarves. She never went out unless the dwarves asked her to. Though strangers hardly came by the cottage because it wasn't so obvious, she never gave attention to the ones which did. The queen hadn't looked into her mirror for a long time since her servant claimed he had killed Snow White. She kept parading herself as the most beautiful lady in all the town, even though she was growing and her beauty was fading. One day, she decided to look into the mirror, and as usual, she asked, "Mirror, am I still the fairest lady in the kingdom?"
You are fair, but Snow White is fairer than you, O Queen.
The mirror answered. The queen was very angry and disappointed. She sought for the servant so she could kill him, but the servant had run away with his family to a safe place. Then she vowed to herself that she will not assign anyone to kill Snow White, but will do it herself. She then thought of how she could reach and kill Snow White, then she asked her mirror, "Where does Snow White live?" The mirror replied,
She lives in a cottage on the hills with 7 dwarfs to care for her.
Then she began to think of options that she could use to kill Snow White. She was really determined to kill her herself since her servant had failed her. The queen, having failed the first time, would not take chances this time. She had to go herself. She used a very potent poison on one part of an apple skillfully. She also knew that Snow White won't accept her if she went as the queen, so she dressed up as a peasant's wife. Then she went to the dwarf's cottage and knocked on the door. "Knock knock. Anybody home?" she asked kindly. "Will Snow White answer it?" Snow White came to look through the window and found a woman poorly dressed, but with a sweet voice and a kind smile that reminded Snow White of her mother. "Who do you seek for?" Snow White asked. "I have been watching you for some days now, and I like you because you're hardworking. I've come to express my love for you," the woman responded. Snow White opened the door for her even though she knew the dwarfs warned her not to open the door to anybody. The queen, disguised as the peasant woman, came in thankfully and sat down only when Snow White asked her to. Being welcomed into the cottage by Snow White, the queen was happy that her plan was working. Then she began telling Snow White a lovely story. "Before my only daughter died, I promised I will show love to any girl as beautiful and hardworking as her. I want to offer you an apple, will you take it? It is a show of how much I care about you." She offered Snow White the apple. The apple looked big and sweet that Snow White was thinking so much whether she should take the apple or reject it. Will she take it? Though Snow White was completely taken by the peasant wife's appearance and the way she talked, Snow White wasn't comfortable with eating the apple. She declined it. "My dear, I only offered you the apple because of the promise I made to my daughter. I told her I would nurse a girl like her as if she was my daughter," the peasant woman said. To convince Snow White the more, she said to her, "If you're scared I poison the apple, I'd take a bite from it." She took a bite from the non-poisoned part of the apple and ate it confidently. Snow White completely believed her lie and thought she could eat the apple. The apple looked really attractive. Snow White decided she will eat the apple. The queen gladly offered it to her, hoping that Snow White won't change her mind about eating it. Snow White took the apple from the queen and took a bite. When she took a bite, the queen removed her veil and showed her real self. "You're such a fool to have believed everything I said. Go join your mother where she is because she'll be glad to see you again," the queen said, then laughed. Snow White was shocked and in disbelief, but she could do naught about it because the poison was very potent. Before Snow White could utter a word, she fell down seemingly dead. When she got back to the palace, she asked her mirror, who affirmed she was now the most beautiful in the kingdom. She was happy. When the dwarves came back home from their mining site, they were shocked to see Snow White lying seemingly lifeless on the ground. One of them cried out,
"Oh no, my princess is not in good shape. Let's get her treated quickly."
Then they saw the remaining apple on the dining table, and they knew that the apple was poisoned and the queen must be behind it. They couldn't bring themselves to bury such a beautiful lady, so they made her a transparent glass coffin with gold engravings. Then they put it on the hills. Several days and nights passed and Snow White lied in the coffin. Amazingly, she remained as beautiful as ever. Her skin still shined as bright as the sun, her cheeks as red as blood, and her hair as black as ebony. On the hill, the dwarves watched her and admired her beauty day and night. Many birds also came to the hill too to come and admire her beauty. She was the fairest lady they had seen in the whole kingdom. Occasionally, the birds and the dwarves would cry, singing, "Oh, I wish beautiful Snow White will live again." Another will sing, "Oh, I wish I could see her smile to me once more, her smile is very lovely." Unfortunately, none of them could do anything to revive her, so they stayed with her glass coffin for a long time. One particular day when the dwarves were watching her coffin, 2 men approached them. One looked like a wizard while the other looked very handsome and comely. When they drew nearer, the handsome young man introduced himself as a prince, and the other as his wizard. He told them he had come because his owl told him there was a beautiful princess on that hill.
What happened to the princess? Who did this to her?
The prince asked with much curiosity. The wizard came nearer to her coffin and discovered she was not dead.
The princess is not dead, but is under a very powerful spell.
The magician said.
It can only be reversed if I use my enchantment with the help of someone that has a truly genuine love for Snow White.
He added. The dwarves claimed they all loved her like their own daughter. Will this work? The wizard, who is also very powerful, could use his magic to remove the effect of the poison apple on Snow White, since the dwarves sincerely loved Snow White as their own daughter. As he made his enchantments to revive Snow White, the 7 dwarves were focused on Snow White. They seemed not to be aware that the wizard was making an enchantment. They were only hoping and watching whether Snow White will come back to life. When the wizard was done, Snow White sneezed and came back to life. The dwarves all shouted,
It works! Our beautiful princess lives again.
Meanwhile, the prince had been gazing at her all the while and realized he had fallen in love with her. When Snow White woke up, she was confused. She didn't understand why there was a glass coffin, why there were many people and birds around her. She was really confused. Then the prince gently walked towards her and began to talk.
Oh beautiful princess, how can I shift my gaze from you, for you're the most beautiful I've ever seen since my birth. Please marry me, and I protect you for the rest of my life.
She agreed and they went together to the prince's palace. While preparations were being made for the prince to marry her, Snow White decided she was going to see her father so he would know she was still alive. She disguised in a way that the queen didn't suspect she was the one. When she got to her father's palace, he was very excited to see her.
I thought you were dead, my beautiful daughter. I'm so happy to know you're still alive.
The king said while hugging her tightly. He thought she had died as the queen told him. Now he knew she was alive, but he kept quiet and pretended he had not seen Snow White. The Long also learned about the kingdom of his in-law-to-be, and formed a strong alliance with them that was going to last for the rest of their days. The wicked queen was also on the list of invited guests since her husband was invited too. The queen then went to look at her mirror again. Mirror, am I still the fairest in all the land? The queen asked.
No, the soon-to-be queen is the most beautiful of all the ladies in all the land.
The mirror replied. She was discouraged that there was a queen who'd be more beautiful than her. She began to consider if it was necessary to see the queen-to-be or not. Will she go to find out who the queen-to-be is? On the wedding day, the food, music, cake and everything was set. The dwarves too were elegantly dressed because to them, it was their daughter's wedding. All the invited guests were anticipating but one thing, the bride. At last the bride came out, and many people were surprised. Some were surprised because of her beauty, others because they thought Snow White was dead. The queen was surprised that Snow White was still alive despite all her attempts to kill. She cursed Snow White. I curse you, Snow White, this day to lose all your beauty. But the curse reversed and her face contorted. She left the wedding party angrily with her contorted face and went back to her mirror. When she got to her mirror she asked again, Mirror, am I still the fairest lady in the kingdom? But the mirror replied,
No, the newly wedded queen is the fairest lady in the whole kingdom.
She became terribly sad, and her contorted face deepened. She became uglier that the servants in the palace began to notice her contorted face and talk about it. They said, the queen was once beautiful, now she is not even pleasant to behold for her face is contorted. She became really ashamed, ran out of the kingdom and never returned again. After the wedding between the prince and Snow White, many people gave them gifts. The dwarves presented them with gifts of gold too. The two of them lived happily for the rest of their lives. When the prince's father was old and died, the prince became king and ruled for many years with his beautiful queen. Oftentimes, they visited the dwarves in the hills because of the kindness they showed to Snow White when she was with them.